Great, John. That looks great. Well, look, welcome all, and welcome to our last military SIG, really, before the summer leave period. Flip, where's that time gone? It's just crazy how it all just seems to be charging by. I think from our perspective, it's just business as usual, really. I think everybody's feeling it a bit right now. I think for us, attention's been focused on the latest government initiative on training of Ukrainian forces here in the United Kingdom. I know our colleagues in Army have been consumed by that in many ways, shapes or forms. The other one is obviously wait times. I don't think any of us involved in health, and maybe as a patient or a carer, aren't in some way, shape, or form impacted by the national situation on wait times. You know, interestingly for us, it is now starting to cause some particular force generation type issues. For Navy in particular, and keeping the task group supported, if you recall Lee's presentation on the carriers and the likes. But interestingly as well, albeit anecdotally, we are seeing a, dare I call it this, a bit of a postcode lottery emerging nationally, and that sort of hinges on where trusts are at a particular point in time, you know, with the recovery plan. We see many trusts that have sort of opened their doors-ish to elective work, but others not. Actually, others that are still feeling that strain of winter period. You know, so I think that's one that's you know, taxing us all. In terms of today's presentation, you may recall that last month the report by, or the much, I don't know, lauded report by Dame Linda and Sir Gordon Messenger was released on NHS leadership and management. And I will drop the link to the report for anyone that hasn't seen it into the discussion for people. And actually, when I read it, I was quite pleasantly surprised but by the report, because it didn't go down the route as maybe some elements of the media were touting it, the military taking control, blah, 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 and directing how leadership should happen. But also, I think for many people, it felt a bit light. Whilst there were many sort of recommendations made and some very pertinent observations with respect to bullying and harassment, for instance, it didn't really, for me, certainly get into the detail of how you run that down, you know, how you have to absolutely get that. So I thought actually it would be really useful and really apt to invite Sue and Beck along to talk about some of the work that they've been doing on behalf of DG and the Brigadier in coming up with this fantastic new initiative for us in defence around medical leadership. And I think I'm not going to steal any sandwiches here. I think I'll just leave it to the both of them. Please do, as usual, drop your questions into the sidebar chat. I don't know how Bex and Sue want to play it, but sometimes we do the raise hand routine in Teams as well. So Sue and Bex, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and joining us today, and really look forward to hearing your talk. Over to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Paddy. Morning or afternoon, everybody. So I'm just going to try again to share the presentation. It may take a few moments to whir in. So if someone could let me know when it's seen, please. But while that's loading up, we'll do a quick introduction to ourselves. So I'm Beck Jones. I'm in project delivery by trade, so I'm a non-clinician. generalist, if you like, in the MOD. And I'm also the transformation lead at the Defence Medical Academy. And as part of that role, I've been working alongside Sue and a whole heap of really talented people, including Brigadier Toby Rowland, who Paddy mentioned is the lead for all things military medical leadership in our organisation. And we've been working on a series of Pan-Defence Medical Services leadership and mentoring initiatives that we're going to tell you about today. So I'll just pass over to Sue. Sue, can you just let me know if you can see the presentation, and hopefully it all works for everybody and it clicks through. But if there are any problems, can someone just raise their hand and I'll go back to just sharing my screen. But Sue, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Bex. And thanks, Sarah, as well for that introduction. My name is Sue Pope. I am an Army officer, but a clinician. So I'm a physiotherapist by background who's been actively involved in championing. Can't even have my teeth worked on yesterday. I blame the dentist. For the last about 10 years, really, particularly in a clinical context. So today I hope to give you or bring more of a personal flavour of these projects through the lens of my recent experiences and involvement in some of those wider DMS leadership development work strands. Bex.
Fabulous, thanks for that. So hopefully that slide's moved on. A thumbs up, Brill. Oh, it's working. I love it. So we're going to spend the next sort of 20 minutes or so giving you an overview on the background to the work we've been doing on leadership culture within the Defence Medical Services. So DMS for short. So I'm going to use some abbreviations, so hopefully you can follow along okay. And then we're going to move on to explain how the Defence Medical Academy, as the organisation responsible for implementing some of this stuff, is approaching this leadership development work. We'll then give you some examples of what these initiatives look like, and Sue's going to share some of her own personal experience as a participant on some of these. And then we'll very briefly at the end just cover how we're going about evaluation and continuous improvement in this space. So quite happy to take questions and answers, but we might be best doing those at the end. So please, I guess you use the chat box, raise hands at the end, and we might want to kind of stray into a discussion on how what we're doing relates to your own areas of work, but also those similarities from our situation environment and the challenges we are also facing that have also been highlighted in what I call the sort of messenger review, as Paddy set out at the start. So to start with then, and moving on to the first area, is why are we focusing on leadership behaviours and culture? Well, the rather glib answer I always give is, why the hell wouldn't we be doing it? I think, as a lot of the review highlighted, leadership matters because it's one of the most influential elements in any organisation. It can have a huge impact on the results that we achieve, on how we achieve excellence, our ability to innovate, respond to change, etc. And perhaps more importantly, it sets that tone for an organisation's culture. So how all our leaders at all levels interact with one another and the teams in which they lead, the way they role model, how they operate, they communicate, how they make decisions. It's about that everyday working environment, the behaviours, the interactions, the beliefs, the values that we all follow. And DMS, like other organisations, absolutely recognises all of this, and that also recognises that much more can be done to create and encourage and support our people to behave and lead in that way. So the way we kind of approach this, we also have a people plan like the NHS, and the vision for kind of leadership culture and behaviours has been set in there, published in October 20. Paddy was very much instrumental behind a lot of this work around a lot of the people plan and also the leadership culture behaviours that we're going to go into. And what this plan does is really formally recognise the importance in ensuring that we have those appropriate leadership behaviours, and the benefits that this can bring to our organisation to help us create better, more effective working environments, help contribute to the delivery of better patient outcomes, and ultimately make the DMS the best place in defence to work. So what does this look like then in terms of a leadership culture? What do those behaviours look like? You can see on the right hand side there, it's about being compassionate and inclusive. It's about having that psychological safety, creating it and being part of that psychological safe space to speak up and challenge constructively. It's about being authentic and inspiring and engaging as a leader, but also being collaborative and almost selfless in your approach, but also that ability to be agile. We have a lot of complexity and challenges and a lot of uncertainty we need to manage, so having that flexibility is key. But also it's about fostering trust and putting that value back into the people that we lead so they are able to do their best at work. As you'd expect, this people plan generated an associated action plan. And as I mentioned before, the Defence Medical Academy were tasked to develop and to start to implement better quality leadership development for the organisation. And very much at the back of the team's mind and our approach to leadership development is this quote by Bill Slim, the soldier as he's called. I'll just pause for a second for you to read that. And for us, this quote really does highlight the role that each and every one of us has to play as leaders and the importance that we need to place on ourselves in our own development as leaders and to be able to build our knowledge and skills as leaders. It's about our behaviours, as we said before, and because after all, how we lead every day can and does make a difference to those around us. And to quote that Messenger review as well, effective leadership creates successful teams and successful teams drive better outcomes, which I think was quite a nice little quote that I've taken from that review. So applying all this in practice then, so the Defence Medical Services is seeking to build beneficial behaviours through progressive and complementary activities that not only bring about change for the individual, but how this can then generate positive benefits to the teams in which they belong and the systems in which they serve, so the bigger organisation. And this principle is just shown in that really simple diagram here. So in terms of what we've been doing then to do all this and deliver this, so the Defence Medical Academy has launched 4 framework initiatives, for want of a better word, to take all of this forward, and we're going to summarise each of these in turn. And to go on to the first one of those, which is about mentoring, and very much complementing and helping to support the development of positive leadership behaviours. We were really pleased at the back end of sort of September last year to launch our own online mentoring platform. So it's the first time Defence has used such technology, which was a real great sort of success, if you like, a bit of Pathfinder work going on there. And what's great about this and the sort of purpose of this is that it automates mentoring opportunities so they are accessible and available to absolutely everybody in our organisation, wherever and whenever they work. And it's really about ensuring that everyone has that opportunity to be supported in their development and can maximise their potential. The platform is a confidential and secure digital space just for us. It's accessible 24/7, going back to that accessibility point, and our people can access it using either work or personal emails or devices. So it really opens up the opportunity for those that are currently perhaps deployed in the NHS and using NHS emails, for instance. I mentioned that it's open to everybody in the DMS and everyone's encouraged to join. So certainly, we've got the sort of HQ part of the Defence Medical Services, but we've got a whole load of people back in the single service med organisations as well. And it's open to all military, all our reserve colleagues, all civilian staff, our trainees that are coming up through the pipeline, and all ranks and grades, professions, all types of experience and career stages are welcome to participate on the platform. And really, to sum up what DMS mentoring is about, well, it's really about allowing anyone who is seeking support with their personal or professional development to have the opportunity to become a mentee and get some support from someone. And anyone who's willing to share their knowledge, skills and experience to help others can become a mentor. So they can also help those mentees also working in the military medical environment. Just to kind of quickly canter through the rest of the kind of features, we offer various different types of mentoring types on the platform, from the sort of traditional one-to-one longer-term relationship, but there's opportunity to participate in reverse or mutual mentoring, peer or spot mentoring, so that's that quick sort of speed dating type mentoring, and of course coaching as well. And this is just so we can make sure that all those different situations and development needs of our people can be best met. Final point on this slide before I pass over to Sue, and the functionality gets me really excited, and I tend to geek out quite a bit about it if anyone knows me, is that the platform provides really useful data analytics and reports, and that's really powerful because at a touch of a button we can see what's going on, we can see the effect of particular campaigns or initiatives that we're putting in place around mentoring and adjust our strategies as we go forward. So I get quite excited about that. So I'm now just going to pass over to Sue, who's going to take you through the next few initiatives that we've been doing. Over to you, Sue.
Thanks, Beck. So, the second initiative that the DMA have been working on is in partnership with the University of Cumbria, and they've been working to develop a new level 7, which is M-level PG postgraduate certificate in defence medical leadership. So that's where the defence medical leadership programme comes from and is currently being piloted. So the intent behind that is to demonstrate basically a proof of concept in our approach to the delivery of leadership development. So through this programme, which is designed to enable participants to reach a really deeper understanding of themselves, to examine their own leadership beliefs, identities, behaviours, and in doing so enable others to achieve the same. And this could help those across the business address suboptimal leadership behaviours and cultures that they see within their own place of work. So testing out those belief systems, we want all to embody and practice compassionate, inclusive leadership and weave it into the fabric of our culture. So how are we delivering this then? Piloting the course across 3 slightly different cohorts, each of approximately about 25 people, to see how this training delivery is applied and practiced by different aspects or team-based groups from within the DMS. Cohort 1, so that's who I have been attached to, or lucky enough to get a place on the course, so should I say. They're almost at the end of their course now, final essays due this week. And this is formed from an open DMS application process, which saw close to sort of 300 applicants, and participants secured a place on merit based on an assessment of their statement. So they had to generate a why me statement with a CV, and that included military, civilian, regular reserves, all flavours of the DMS were invited and considered in those applications. So it took 25 from that first initial cohort. Second cohort has been formed by Defence Primary Healthcare staff from mostly the Eastern region, which started in January. And then finally cohort 3, which has been formed by secondary healthcare staff from JHG North and RCDM. And they started just more recently back in April. So the idea behind this, I think, was to create some kind of pockets of leadership development activity, sort of centres of critical mass, if you like, to create some momentum within the system and hopefully strive for more positive results that way. So the next slide, I think we're moving on to, provides a little bit more detail about the course and what's involved in the programme, which really takes a learner-led and reflective approach, where participants are really invited to draw on their own experiences and bring this learning and reflection back into the workplace. So it's a 36-week part-time course, so 3 modules of 12 weeks, but only actually 8 days of that is residential training at the Defence Medical Leadership Centre, which I think Becky will cover in a second. Successful completion of which will earn you 60 credits at level 7, which is a PG cert in Defence Medical Leadership. And a bit more detail then about those 3 modules on there. The first module is where it applies transformative learning techniques to encourage individual behaviour leadership changes. And this is then augmented with skills in coaching and mentoring to help the leaders get the best from the members of their team and their colleagues. And the third module is a workplace-based, I can never say that right, a workplace-based project. So participants are in the programme apply what they've learned, put it into action within their workplace, trying to address a problem that they've identified or a challenge. So you're ensuring that benefits are gained by both the participants and their teams and the organisation, so tackling real life challenges in the environment which they work. So I wanted to bring a little flavour of what that means really from my perspective. And you're maybe thinking, well, what are transformative learning techniques? Which is a great question. I'll try and talk you through some of that. And it's really just about the approach and the delivery approach, not necessarily any new leadership theory. It's certainly not traditional teaching methods that participants probably expected to receive when they arrived on day 1. Rather, it took us to a different, more uncomfortable place, really, where we had to do all the work and not get belt-fed leadership theory and learn some new nuggets. I don't know about any of you, but I've been a leadership L plate wearer for 25 years so far. I've tried to read all the books, I've listened to the podcasts, I watch the webinars, and there isn't a magic bullet, is there? It really doesn't matter how much you read and where you look from it externally. You've probably got all the answers within you. So we probably should start there first. So it really is inviting people to take a really good look at themselves, their values, their beliefs, and therefore their subsequent behaviours, and the reasons why perhaps they take a view of the world, of themselves in the world, the way that they do. So our biases, our experiences, our values and perspectives, and being able to take on other perspectives, through critical reflection, being the cornerstone of challenging problematic frames of reference. So I try not to go on any more waffly about the theory of that, but really I can actually get quite excited about that, because that's quite left field it's the way it's packaged is the difference. I think I don't think it's anything massively new. It's just the way that is packaged up, which has been really interesting. But if you're interested in it links heavily to the work of academics like Jack Masrow. But essentially, it hopes to transform one's identity, and specifically, we're looking at leadership identity, challenging assumptions, trying to recognise unhelpful lenses, and tweaking and correcting those lenses, which can ultimately foster more positive behaviours to be more effective as a colleague, a team leader, or team member. So we're really trying to feed those cultural aspects of the aspired change that we're trying to achieve, to be inclusive by values-led and normalising more effective behaviours, and not necessarily driven by the structures or the past way of doing things. And that's quite a real challenge in an extremely hierarchical organisation, because we all work within that, NHS, military, probably the worst of the worst combination you can expect. So, I am really seeing it in real time, where the colleagues that I'm on the course with and myself are trying to affect behavioural and cultural change. That's no easy thing. And we're trying to do it from the inside out, not top down, and I think that's where, even in my time in the military, if you've got a good idea, you need it to grow organically and from the inside out, not necessarily enforce it from the top down. So I think that's where we've really felt empowered to really go out there and make a difference, and every step at a time is going to add up to the bigger picture. So the coaching and mentoring skills and techniques have also been really instrumental alongside that, alongside the deep reflective practice. I think supporting the ability to develop those insights in others. So sort of self-coaching is the start. Ask the right questions of yourself, really pose some difficult questions in a challenging way, and then you can transfer that to other people. Having coaching conversations, skills such as active listening, and forming those sort of relationships in a different way, perhaps, than a power tension relationship, and coming from a more, I'm sitting with you alongside you as a coach, rather than I have all the answers for you. You need to come up with those for yourself. So that was really, for me, as a game changer in trying to facilitate others to see that they've got the answers to their own problems, and I don't have to take those problems onto them. I can't fix everyone's problems. I don't have the capacity or the time, or and neither should I, because I'm not actually empowering people to take responsibility for their own problems. They have the solutions within them. So that coaching mindset really will make a massive difference, I'm sure of it. So how I can certainly see how sensitively challenging difficult behaviours would be difficult to achieve if you're unable to empathise by seeing other perspectives, or to actually be able to communicate those problematic mindsets in a safe and supportive way, because that's a really big challenge as well. Psychological safety, and how do we set the conditions for that? So having all these difficult conversations, and trying to take a step forward for the benefit of everyone, that coaching conversation, I think, is an excellent way to try and achieve that. So I've seen the cohorts have significant benefits of the program to date. Really, I can say that we've 25 of us have really bonded strong, because we've shared collaborative stories, we've shared our experiences, quite deep reflections, we've been honest, we've really stripped ourselves bare, if you like, with some of the details of where we've been. We've had to really do some deep searching, and I think that's never easy, but I think we're getting everything that we put out into it and out of it and more. I can honestly say that in my 25 years of leadership L plates, or continuously work in progress, this has probably been the most profound transformational program I've undertaken. I think I've seen the most change in myself, and I think it's down to that fundamental and liberating new way of thinking about ourselves and the world, and how we occupy our space within it. After all, what do we say? It's a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, that we all now operate within. And let's face it, we have to do something different. We have to do it differently. So in order to do things differently, we have to see things differently. We have to behave differently. We have to think and feel differently. And I think this DMLP program certainly challenges us to do that. I can assure you. So more information about the future of this program, because remember, it's just a pilot at the moment, will be coming probably next year, early next year, when that pilot is evaluated and it's fully conclude about the next steps for that, and that will be hopefully opened up and continued. So I think Beck's going to move on to the next slide, onto the third initiative that we said about at the start. And under the Brigadier's direction, we've created a sort of new but ever evolving Defence Medical Leadership Network. And this is providing a framework for cohering leadership development activity across Defence and sharing those benefits to the wider workforce. So we've got 11 leadership regions which have been created. So you'll recognise those as NHS England and other boundaries. So and it aligns with the NHS England and Leadership Academy regions. So there's 7 regions in England. We've got 3 in the devolved administrations, plus for us, the rest of the world, which encompasses our overseas and permanent joint operating bases overseas. So we've taken that approach to match this sort of geographical boundaries to sort of align ourselves better from local, regional, and national collaboration. So we'll see how that goes. I think there's a space to move into there then after the sort of post-COVID, post-winter pressures. There may be an opportunity for us to revisit a lot more locally how we can work together with our NHS counterparts. So what else is it supposed to be doing? We're looking to how to grow leadership skills and talent across the DMS, how to connect people, have a network, and see what new initiatives or content, events, test out new ideas, encourage participation in the DMS. So with local leadership development initiatives. So we're trying to really see what's going on out there and join up the dots, because that's part of the problem we're in. We're so busy, we don't know who's doing what where, and it's really good to have a network of like-minded people. So communities of practice, if you will. So the Brig gave us 3 main areas really for activity in those networks, and I'm the lead of the Midlands network. And that was to firstly to gain a better understanding of the current issues and areas of strength around leadership in the DMS, and also to understand the real lived experience, which allow us to identify opportunities where we can really target or focus improvements. So we've had initial focus groups, had the back end of last year. It's given us a start point to really set the conditions and prioritise what we can do. So the next stage is to sort of look at tangible quick wins and what can we achieve there. So resourcing, signposting to our region. I've got about 40 to 50 people signed up to the Midlands region, to trying to keep them in touch with perhaps events, at what the NHS Midlands is doing, podcast opportunities, mentoring, try and push the mentoring platform for Beck's recruitment ground. I've tried to host some networking, so coffee drop-in sessions, and we've had some focus groups as well to look at specific questions that the DMS Leadership Working Group has asked us to look at. And then the third element, which is the way that we're sort of moving towards now, is looking at those through life learning opportunities and how can we develop more appropriate resources to support leadership development. So what can we learn from other organisations, and at what point can we perhaps insert chunks of leadership development across the career stages to maximise talent and signpost at the right place at the right time in someone's career when they're ready to receive those sort of extra nuggets of deeper reflection maybe. So, and also the whole thing is sort of resting on that Jennings principle of 70-20-10, where we really need to see learning happening in the workplace and reflect on what we're doing and how we're doing it. So on the job, to encourage this sort of context and person-specific development. So the mentoring platform is really key. People sometimes associate it's not training, it's not got a certificate, it's not worth doing. And it absolutely is, especially with resources being so tight and everything. We have a lot of good role modelling and experience to have in the workplace. So I really, my next role is going to be in training. I'm not going to see it as training. It's about transforming people and supporting people to be their best version of themselves. So really, that's where my passions are, and I hope we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But so it's a really a golf bag approach. So not one size fits all. So you see some of these initiatives and how we can select some offers to provide support for various people to access when and where they need it. So how and when it's convenient for them, which makes the most impact. People are ready to receive it and take part in these things at different times. So what next for the networks? Well, I'm conducting an ongoing sort of engagement with my group to try and determine how we keep evolving, how we stay relevant, how we keep up in the top of the people's minds and diaries, because it's completely congested space. If it's a volunteer thing, if it's something, well, nothing's going to change today, then we're competing for that next meeting or that next deadline. And so we really have got to sell the reason why it's beneficial to people and really get their buy-in. And that investment is time well spent. So the last bit of point I just want to cover was about a future leaders conference we've got going on in the 6th and 7th of September in partnership with the University of Cumbria at their Lancaster campus. And that's going to be an opportunity to bring together a spectrum of about 100 future leaders from across ranks and civil service grades of the headquarters DMS to improve our DMS situational awareness, develop relationships, network people together, those sort of things, and to explore insights into our medical leadership from recent DMLC field work that we've been doing, and our module 3 projects that I'm developing as we speak, and discuss methods really about how we can continue to build and improve cohesion within the DMS, and really to try and keep that momentum going with all these initiatives together. So Bex, back over to you.
Thanks for that, Sue. So I'm just going to move quickly on to the final and fourth initiative we're going to talk about today, which is our venue for Defence Medical Leadership, so our Defence Medical Leadership Centre that we created about a year or so ago at Defence Medical Services Whittington, which is in Lichfield. We put a bit of money in, we did some renovation and refurbishment, put some spanking new IT in as well, so it's brilliant. And it's very much serving as our flagship venue for conducting leadership events, but it's also that spiritual home for the programme that Sue's just described. To accompany the physical venue and to actually widen participation across the organisation, we've also created a virtual DMLC. That's accessible via our Defence Gateway area. So it's an area for our personnel. It's a little bit secure in that sense. And this virtual centre, provides those leadership development resources, those links to more information, good reading, links into the NHS Leadership Academy, etc. It's also got links to a series of leadership masterclasses that we've started to bring together, that's bringing some really fantastic speakers and experts from a diverse field and growing field from across the private and public sector. And they're all hosted on the Defence Medical Academy's YouTube channel. So if you just Google or go onto YouTube and look for Defence Medical Academy, you should be able to pick up those leadership talks. What I will say is that the virtual centre is very much a work in progress. We're going to do some more development of it over this year and into next. We want to look at how we can make the material more engaging, how we can perhaps create sort of discussion forum functions, but also, and so Sue sort of hinted at this, exploring how we can perhaps bring in a series of online bite-sized learning courses, but very much learning from the best practice of the NHS Leadership Academy. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to try and supplement a few spokes, I think, going forward on that one. So it's all very exciting. So that very much wraps up the 4 leadership initiatives, the main ones, that framework. And before I open up the floor for a chat, and there's been a few questions I think in the box as well we can come to, I'm just going to finish on how we're taking stock of all this activity and ensuring that we are collecting data in order to be able to evaluate the benefits and then use these outcomes to drive those future improvements as we go. This again is a little bit of a work in progress. We've been very busy on sort of implementing and kicking off all the leadership initiatives we've spoken about. But we're following the principle of seeking to quantify and qualify outcomes in terms of benefits to the individual, team and system. So returning back to that arrow that we showed earlier. And we're going to be using a mix of kind of participant surveys from both the mentoring platform, but the programme, user data from the said platform, and also going to look at what perhaps is going on wider in the organisation around some of the bigger survey activities that we do in terms of people survey and continuous attitude surveys, etc., as well as a kind of more sort of formal review of the approach that we're taking. So more to do in that space in terms of kind of what next and what does that look like in terms of benefits. Just like to say, that's the end. Thanks for listening to us. We're hoping that was useful and informative. really would like to open up the floor now onto a wider discussion on how what we're doing here perhaps relates to what you're doing in your organisations, and how we can perhaps connect up in some of this activity as well. So I don't know, John, is it back over to you or Paddy really, perhaps to facilitate that?
I think Paddy can take on the facilitation here. Why not? Thank you both very much indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both. That's absolutely fantastic. And you know, it's one of those topics. Actually, you know, you need a day at least to go through and chew it through. Absolutely fantastic. So in the sidebar, first question was from Emma Harrison, and basically, have you thought about offering mentoring opportunities across organisations, e.g., DMS staff mentoring NHS and vice versa?
Absolutely. So we have a little bit of a roadmap, funny enough, I've been in project delivery around the whole mentoring offer that we are doing. And we're definitely interested in that sort of cross-organisational mentoring opportunities. I know that the platform that we use, the supplier also supplies a whole raft of NHS organisations and trusts. So I think there's definitely some synergies there. And I know one of the things that they've got on their roadmap is that sort of bigger community of practice, for want of a better word, around mentoring and how the different platforms could potentially connect up. But we're talking about the future there. So I think there's something quite simple and quick we could be doing. Our focus has been getting the mentoring platform up and running, getting the offer out there, and that's still very much my focus. Big organisation, and it'd be really, even though I think the message has been pushed out in every possible channel and every possible way, I'm getting pockets of people that have never heard of this platform. So I'm doing a lot of kind of roadshow briefings still and getting that message out to particular career groups. And that does really reap a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
They're also going to be working on sort of the coaching element as well. So bringing in what Sue was saying around and that support to the medical leadership programme. So that's the other area. So yes, absolutely, we will be thinking of it. But we just need to work out how best to manage it, because if we got someone externally, and we did think about perhaps, you know, quite senior people could potentially become mentors to some of our people from outside. How do you manage that process? Because they'll be very popular. You know, there'll be lots of people that would want to be mentored by them. So we need to work that through. But yeah, absolutely good idea, and we would definitely be up for it. So if there's anyone on this call that would like to work with me, I'm open to working that through.
Thanks, Beck. Emma, did you want to follow up on that?
All I wanted to say is thank you very much. I've not attended one of these before, so I'm a real newbie, so I don't recognise anybody. Lots of people in uniform. It's great.
Welcome,
I think it's
Emma.
fantastic.
Welcome.
Thank you. We do quite a bit to support the armed forces over at the QEH in Kings Lynn, I just think that this looks like a great opportunity for us to be able to look at how our leaders can learn from your leaders and vice versa, and how we can understand more about each other's organisations at the same time, subliminally, which will be great, and how we can use that to develop our organisation further. So yeah, I'd really like to be involved, Rebekah, if that's an opportunity. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Now the next one I have is from David, from David Bates. David, do you want to put your question across yourself before I mangle it over?
Yeah, thanks, Paddy. I can't remember what I said now. I think it was more of a statement than a question, but it was just really, I think it's following on from what Emma was saying, and sort of joining up all of these different schemes. Because one of the things that we found during the height of the COVID pandemic, when we were running and it wasn't only the Army, it was the RAF, the Navy, MOD, everybody was doing it. We were fusing with the NHS, because the NHS found, and they articulated a requirement that their senior leaders did not necessarily have the tools that they needed to actually fight through the pandemic, because they were using all their peacetime, in inverted commas, processes that weren't working. And so the reason why they came to the military was because they thought, right, well, you know, we've been on campaigns, operations for the last 30, 40 years. Is there anything in our toolbox which is different? And the thing that was different was it was that campaign planning. It was that, and I hate the term thinking outside the box, but basically, and I think I put it in the chat, it's about intelligence. It's about developing intelligence in your operator. And what I teach because I work with Ian Corrie and John Barclay at Cumbria University on the transformative learning program, and that's all about developing intelligence in the operator. So what we teach is we teach principles. So you can take those principles and you can apply them anywhere, in any organization, in any system. If you look at other university curricula, it's all about systems. And if you look at the NHS, you look at NHS leadership programs, you look at the staff college, it's all about systems, it's all about organizations. And that's what the military was like probably 20 years ago when I was going through AJD, Army Junior Division. It was all about systems. It was all organograms. It was all scary diagrams. What we've done since then is we've simplified that, and we've identified the principles that you need. So a piece of research I did in 2009 for my Masters in Medical Education, I looked at the requirements of the Army Medical Services Command and Staff Cadre. I got criticised for that because I didn't include the rest of the DMS, but actually that baseline it's relevant to the rest of the it's relevant to Army, RAF, Navy, MOD, and in fact NHS and anybody that's in the health sector. And so I haven't rewritten that, I haven't developed it, but I've presented it a number of times and updated it. But the principles that, and this was from not only our own commander staff, so commanders med and COs, medical COs, but also formation commanders and users. And I ran a Delphi study around 3 cycles, and what we came up with was the most important quality of the commander was intelligence. You've got to be an intelligent operator. You can be knowledgeable, but that knowledge doesn't necessarily give you the intelligence to be flexible and agile, which is what Sue and Emma has been talking about today. So you've got to be intelligent, you've got to be knowledgeable, you've got to be a problem solver, you've got to be a decision maker by definition. But, and again, above all, you've got to be a good communicator in all media. So you've got to communicate your message. So you've got to be intelligent to be agile and to be able to respond to the changes. And that's one of the big issues that we found throughout the COVID pandemic. So when I was in the reserve and I was doing reach back with 7th SEM Brigade, this was one of the big problems that we were finding, was that poor or lack of communication. And that's because we didn't have the intelligence in the system.
Oh, super, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph, you have your hand up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Joseph. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was really enlightening. I'm sure it's accepted widely that diverse teams can have better outcomes. How is the DMS optimizing its diversity to try to pull through these underrepresented groups and represent that talent?
Dex, do you want that one?
Trying to get off mute. Honestly, I'm not trying to avoid the question. I know Joseph as well. Hi, Joseph. So I can kind of attempt to answer it. So one of the other strands of the people plan is very much looking at that sort of diversity and inclusion piece, and it does very much interlink with the leadership culture and behaviours, absolutely. And I've got sort of 2 roles, both the kind of working on the leadership stuff, and also I'm the DMS's multicultural advocate, or one of the advocates. And we've been doing quite a bit in the race space specifically, but obviously there's definite similarities in terms of experience and the work that we're doing and the outputs we're trying to achieve that go into the other protected characteristics and what we're trying to do here. And interestingly, I had a sort of conversation with Brigadier Toby about some of the work that I'm doing in that area, which is an initiative called Elephant in the Room. I won't go on too much about that because I will get like Sue and get really enthusiastic and keep going on about it, which is very much an initiative that we're partnering up with the Army D&I team, and it's been very much a grassroots initiative that has been created by a warrant officer in the Army, but is getting traction in the Army, and it's certainly something that we have kind of grabbed with both hands. And Elephant in the Room takes a sort of behavioural inclusion workshop approach with a unit to facilitate those sort of sophisticated conversations about race, bias and racism in its forms, whether it's external and how that impacts in the workplace as well and what we can do about it, and doing that in a sort of psychologically but challenging safe space, because, you know, we've got to kind of make the uncomfortable comfortable to talk about, because race can be quite difficult. We tend to shirk away from, you know, talking about some of the issues associated with that. And I was chatting, you know, we've done the first kind of iteration, the first pilot with our joint hospital group in South in Portsmouth, literally finished last week. And one of the sort of themes that is coming out, it's about, again, a leader will set the tone for a unit, an organisation, a team. And actually, how do we equip, train, open the minds of the leaders to be more aware of sort of inclusion matters and issues, how to deal with them, how to spot them, how to manage and encourage sort of talent of those underrepresented groups? Because we know, looking at the stats, Black, Asian and minority ethnic people don't progress as fast, aren't in the top tier of the organisation, etc. So there's real barriers there, lots of causes for those barriers. How do we get those leaders to understand what's going on there, how to spot talent, how to unblock those barriers, how to kind of check their own biases that are going on as well? So I had a conversation with Brigadier Toby, and very much I was like, you know, banging the drum, and we need to get sort of this elephant in the room training into the leadership training space. And he was very much of the view that actually the skills and the techniques that Sue's described give you that grounding as a leader to be able to kind of take on these other aspects as well. And I think, Sue, you probably agree, the kind of methods that you do to, you know, unlock your own biases, look at what's going on around you, give you that skill set, that sort of golf bag or toolkit in which you can then kind of practice these things going forward. So kind of a bit of a long waffly answer, Joseph. Sorry, you know me, and we've had conversations about this sort of stuff before, but hopefully that's answered it. But more than happy to chat offline about all of this.
Super, thank you, Bex. So John, you had sort of popped in a sidebar question about whether the programme fell out of or arose out of a specific audit. I think from my perspective, in my previous role as the head of workforce and people, there were a number of factors that sort of were coming together and pointing this in this direction. So it wasn't an audit per se. I think the first most important thing was that sort of year on year, we were getting responses within our staff survey, our continuous attitudes survey, and our people survey as well, that one of the areas of criticism was leadership and people's perception of leadership. Some of that was probably about leadership behaviours. Some of that as well was about perceptions in relation to bullying and harassment. Some of that was in relation to change leadership and in some people's view how appalling we have been at that over the years. But at the same time as well, when Peter Homer gave me the task of writing the people strategy and then the people plan to fall out of it, there were a number of things going on in the outside world that were just we were very curious about and quite interested in, and not least the formation of the NHS Leadership Academy and their particular model and approach, and other wider work, things like General Stanley McChrystal's work with his group in the leadership domain. So a number of things came together that were pointing to this, and the real enabler for me was that Peter Homer made it his priority. He identified it as one of those things that we must be seen to be doing something about, and we should be getting after it very, very fast. And it just so happened that as well, Brigadier Toby had not long come into the academy, having come from a secondment in Health Education England, and that also sort of gave him the more recent experience and background to get it off the ground, and then through the work of great people like Sue and Bex, you know, made this, you know, fantastic thing happen. It's hugely positive for us, and interestingly, you know, when I speak to say some of my NHS England colleagues and their experiences of COVID and the challenges and the remaining challenges and everything else, you know, I think now more than ever, and you know, I've said this before, that, you know, we do need that compassionate and inclusive leadership, and it's not just necessarily about well, it's a constellation of things, isn't it? It's about looking after your workforce, you're keeping your workforce, the ability to recruit. You know, people will not join something that isn't attractive, you know, at the end of the day. And yes, of course, outcomes as well. And I think the final thing for me was to challenge this notion that military leadership is all about shouty stuff, you know, and you know, and frankly, bullying. It's not. It's absolutely not. And from the day and hour that our young leaders begin their training, it's about looking after each other. And it's that part of it that we absolutely must champion. And as I say, you know, Bex and Sue have really taken that forward. Moreg's asking, how can you join a leadership network? Do you have to be involved in the leadership program formally, or is it available more widely?
So I'll take that, Bex, if you want. So I've popped a response, and I know Bex has as well in the sidebar about the. I've linked Morag the page on the SharePoint site of the leadership development activity that's happening under the DMA, and in there's a presentation about lots of these aspects as well, the links to the mentoring platform, etc. And there's the list of contacts there. So no, absolutely, they're separate, but you might find if you're in motivated to, you know, they might well link up in time, because remember, it's only the first year of this pilot course. So the DMLP is not going to be accessible for everybody, and is not needs to be accessible for everyone. It's level 7. It's a lot of writing. That's going to put some people off. So trying to come up with a range of offers that gets people thinking in their own space that they are capable and they are leaders, and their identity as such, not, oh, I'm not in a position of leadership, so I'm not the one that makes the decisions, you know, but you're the one that benefits from making any challenges in the workplace, or making it a fairer, more inclusive workplace, or, you know, everyone's got a responsibility to stamp out inappropriate behavior and non-inclusive behavior, not just because you're in a position of leadership, so an appointed position of leadership. I think we're all leaders, and that's part of the battle. So no, absolutely not necessarily the same thing, Morag, but the room for everybody. We want more people at the lower levels, because they're the future leaders, you know. And I think there is, so might agree, but, you know, there is going to be a lag between the old generation, for want of a better word, or the mindset of shouty military. This is how I was trained and brought up, and with a fixed mindset, and a different, more growth opportunities for people to. It's never too late to change, or to learn something new, and to be a better leader. Ever. It's never too, you know, we are not fixed. And as soon as someone says they've got a fixed mindset, then they probably are. They probably are fixed. But you know, I do think there is opportunity for everyone across the organisation, and that's where we're trying to make offers accessible for everyone to make a small change in themselves, or make a bigger change for the organisation, and aligning ourselves to the visions and values of an organisation. But we're not necessarily putting things in the way for people to make the connection between the organisational values and what does that look and feel like in their daily workplace. So hopefully we can change perspectives along the way, and lots of things for people to tap into. So there's a hand up there.
Yeah, there's 2 hands now. I've got David. Did you want to come in first?
Yeah, just to quickly amplify what Sue's saying there about getting the juniors involved, because I'm bald and I'm so old, go back 20, 30 years, I was involved with the old accredited managers program and the fellowship program, the military fellowship in the IHM. And we tried to open that up to the warrant officers and the seniors, and they just did not understand what it was about. We were trying to be inclusive. They just thought it was an officers' club, and so they didn't want to get involved, even though I had a couple sign up. When it eventually came to the crunch and they had to start doing the work, they just wouldn't engage. So, you know, I'm hoping that our warrant officers and senior and junior NCOs are much better and more intelligent these days, and that they will engage and they will become part of the leadership community. But you're right, it's about them as much as it is about the seniors. And you know, the big mistakes we always make is we always train the seniors first and then expect them to cascade it down. Actually, it needs to be more holistic. But we tried that and it didn't work, purely because of the individuals. It was the personality. So you've got to get the personalities and the cultures sorted out before we can start addressing those issues properly.
Thanks, David. John, I will give the final question to you.
It's less of a question and more of an invitation, really. We've got masses of resource within the Institute. We've got dedicated high performance leadership for the 2020s, short course masterclasses that will take the average person 4 to 8 hours to complete, including the reflective bit. And I think it's fantastic what Sue and Bex have described in terms of the defence leadership medical activity. But don't overlook the quick and cheerful and short, sharp but very effective stuff that we can offer to supplement that, and that often is a great way for people to get started in terms of piquing their curiosity in respect of what does great leadership look, feel and sound like in the world that we live in today. So I was just going to say, you know, please don't think you have to do this on your own. We're here to help and support you. And we've got masses of content, and more importantly, I guess people who are, when you come along to all of the different special interest group meetings, are delighted to share their own stories and experiences. And it's all the richer for that, to be quite honest. There we are. Can the NHS access the short courses? Yes, you can, if you're a member of the Institute of Health and Social Care Management. And there are loads of short courses, and they're all free to you. You don't have, once you've paid your annual fee, or you've joined as a result of a group deal, you get access to all of that for free. So yeah, come on in, you know.
Brilliant.
That's all, Paddy. I'll hand back to you, and my personal thanks to Bex and Sue for today.
Yeah, thank you, John. And I absolutely mirror that. You know, Sue, Bex, fantastic, and I had no doubts anyway. To a great. You know, it was absolutely what I wanted and so much more. And I think it's just so important that we get that message out there about how it's not just moving with the times, it's just how, you know, our changing is, you know, our thinking is evolving. And our thinking around is less about smashing things up and more about bringing people along with us at the end of the day. And then, so you absolutely hit the nail on the head for me earlier. You know, in some way, shape or form, we are all leaders, and we are the carriers of our own leadership culture. You know, so thank you both so much for that. That's really, really great. And to the group, thank you for joining today. I hope you have a fantastic summer leave period when it eventually reveals itself for you. Spend that time as best you can, you know, with family, nearest and dearest, friends, and hopefully the summer weather will appear, the 2 days or so that usually arrives at some point. And I look forward to speaking to you all again and seeing you all again, hopefully in September, I believe is our our next military SIG. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Paddy. Thank you very much. Just in case anybody's interested, during August, we have got some well-being things on. So through one of our retired members in particular, who's the chair of the retired members special interest group, we're doing some walks around popular places for our members. I think our first one is in Cheshire, just outside of Macclesfield, and that takes place on the 14th of August. If you'd like to go up there, if you're in that part of the world, there will be a lot. Oh, there we are. Jade has already put it up. There we are, a Bollington walk up in Cheshire. We're hoping that one will also take place down towards Exeter on that weekend or a similar weekend. So we're just trying to boost people's well-being during the August time, and I'm sure those things will continue subsequently as well. But thank you, Paddy. We're in your debt for your brilliant chairmanship of this special interest group. Thanks also to Sue and Bex and to everybody else who's contributed today. In the meantime, have a wonderful summer, and we will see you, as Paddy says, back in September. Thank you very much.